Hello. Okay, thank you everyone for coming to the 6 keys to successful relationship. Welcome everyone. I just want to say that it's a privilege to actually redo this webinar again. And this time I'm actually here with a little bit of friends of mine. Let me actually introduce them to you very briefly. So, this is a group. Everybody wave hi. Hi. Hello. Great, thank you. So they're actually going to keep me company and also try to, what I do here is actually a whole day workshop. So we're trying to squeeze it in 1 hour, which means we don't have a lot of time for elaboration. So rather than doing the typical practices and the demonstration that I would normally do, we'll have to keep it to a description. But if you are interested in going a little bit more deeper, I'll also be doing a 2-hour online conference, part of the first online NLP conference ever, which is going to be amazing. More than 14, I think, speakers speaking for more than 30 hours for a price I think that's really very, very, very reasonable. I actually recently went to a workshop where they were selling CD sets for $250 for just a couple of hours of CDs. So I think this is such an amazing opportunity. So, oops, let me close that window. So welcome again. So let's go ahead and start it because there's a lot of material that we want to cover. First thing that I want to talk about actually is the fact that I'm not a relationship expert. I'm not here to speak about this topic as somebody who knows it all. The reason I got interested in relationship is because I used to run several teams in my last corporate job. I used to work for American Express and also for Cigna. And part of my job was just running several different business teams. And one thing that I stumbled into is that I really loved coaching teams. And what I found I was really good at was actually creating very high-performing teams that had incredibly strong core d'esprit. So I sort of stumbled upon it. And it was a team, so my teams were actually the ones that people most wanted to get into, usually had the highest morale and lowest amount of attrition. So I kind of stumbled upon it, but I realized that that didn't apply to all areas of my life. In fact, what happened was 6 years ago, the reason I got into NLP was because I went through a very painful divorce. And it was never a question of love because my ex-wife and I, we were very happy together for almost 5 years. And then things just kind of spiraled really quickly until 6, 7 months later, we were divorced, and neither of us knew almost why. So it was tremendously shocking, and it got me on a path of trying to discover, well, why did this happen? So that was part of my journey of trying to find out how does the relationships work, and how can things that I was doing in the business world, how does that apply to personal relationships? And turns out there's a lot of similarities and common threads that go through that. So I really want to share now what I learned in my journey and hopefully some discussion so that at least we can give you some food for thought about the things. Before we start, I actually want to start with a couple of funny quotes. Let me see if I can. So I'm having a hard time finding a little arrow. Okay. So these were some views by children about what relationship meant, and I thought this was hilarious, so I thought I'd start with this. I'm going to do this. Let's go and see if you can see that. Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. So kids were saying, what do most people do on dates? And Lynette, age 8, said, dates are for having fun and people should use them to get to know each other. Even boys have something to say if you listen long enough. How can a stranger tell if two people are married? I thought this was really funny. You might have to guess based on whether they seem to be yelling at the same kid. 8.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. When is it okay to kiss someone? When they're rich by age 7. And the last one of my favorite, is actually, how would you make a marriage work? From Ricky, age 10, said, tell your wife that she looks pretty even if she looks really like a truck. So I thought that was just really funny. So, how do I get this thing back now? Like I did in the first time, let me go ahead and start with a um, short story about a man who didn't believe in love. This is actually by Don Miguel Ruiz in his book called Mastery of Love. And the story is called The Man Who Didn't Believe in Love. So there was once a man who didn't believe in love, even though he was a very highly intelligent man. Um, he thought that love didn't exist. Of course, he had tried to find love, and he observed many people around him. What he said was that love is just like a drug. It makes you very high, but it creates a strong need. He would say that relationship between lovers are like a relationship between drug user and a drug dealer, because he thought the one who has the biggest need is like the drug addict. The one who has a little need is like the dealer, and who actually ultimately controls the relationship. So like a drug addict, someone who is addicted to love lives in this constant fear of losing that daily dosage. And the dealer or the supplier can control the relationship by by being able to sort of control the dosage. So the person who is needing or wanting love or the dosage is always thinking, when is she going to leave me, or when is he going to leave me? And there's a lot of possessiveness that comes with that. And the man also notices is that even though people would start off, young couples would start off all kinds of dedication and commitment and promises, but a lot of times it would sour. And so he felt that love actually didn't exist. So he was very down on this idea. Then one day, while the man was walking in a park, he saw this beautiful lady crying. And concerned, he went to ask her why she was crying. And you can imagine his surprise when she said, well, I'm crying because I don't believe in love anymore. So you can you can imagine his curiosity. So he asked her, why do you feel that way? So the woman explained, well, I got married when I was very young, and everything was great when we were first, starting out. We loved each other and we really got along well. But as the years went by, we became more and more disconnected. And, eventually we started hurting each other a lot. And we only stayed because of our children. And now that the children are all grown up and they have left home, my wife and I have decided to separate and get a divorce. And now I'm so sad because I don't believe in love anymore. So he was deeply touched and he said, you know what, you're right, I believe the same. And they started talking. Eventually they actually became amazing friends. So their conversations actually became better and better because neither of them believed in love. So they were both just free to be who they were. And they just talked about all kinds of things. And they found that they really enjoyed spending time with each other. There wasn't possessiveness. The man didn't get jealous when she was with other people. He didn't get envious when she was more successful. There was a lot of celebration about each other's successes. And there was a lot of sharing about what they were feeling. So they were very happy as friends. But one day the man was out walking out in town and he had a very strange thought. He thought, maybe what I'm feeling is actually love. But it's not what the poets say. It's not it's not what the movies tell me what love feels like. I don't feel jealous. I don't feel this possessiveness. It actually feels pretty amazing. It feels like a very natural friendship, and I'm just sharing what I'm feeling. So he went and told her this, and to his surprise, she had actually been feeling the same way for quite a while, and she thought, I was feeling the same, but I didn't want to tell you because I know you didn't believe in love. So at that point, they decided to actually become lovers, and they started spending time together as lovers, and their hearts became very full. In fact, the man's heart became so very full. One night, a miracle happened. He was out watching the stars one night, and the biggest and the brightest star fell right into his hands. And that star actually merged with his soul and his heart. And he was just filled with happiness. So he thought, to prove my love, I'm going to give this star to my lover. So he went and gave her the star. They're full of love. And she accepted it. For a moment of doubt, it slipped through her hands and it shattered into a million different pieces. So now there's an old man walking around the earth, feeling very sad, who doesn't believe in love. And there's an old woman who feels that for that one moment of doubt had let paradise slip away. So who do you think is fault for this? What happened? I'm sorry, I can't see any of your comments right now because my screen won't reduce. So show chat. Wonderful, great. Um, so the so the lesson that Don Miguel Ruiz was trying to say is that love starts with us. It actually starts inside of us. And when we give to somebody else by making someone responsible for our own happiness, it's bound to fail, or at least the chance of that not succeeding will fail. So that was the big lesson that Don Miguel was trying to say. Oops. Sorry, let me get rid of this, which keeps popping up. So let me go ahead and dive right in to 6 keys to successful relationships. So I'm going to be talking about this pretty quickly, although I would love to get more in depth. So what I feel that's really successful in my experience and from what I've been learning is that, one, you really have to know who you are and what you want in order for you to find the kind of successful relationships. It's like you wanting to go from London to Edinburgh and you don't have a map. If you don't know where you are or where you want to go, it's going to be very difficult to get there. So I think knowing yourself and your partner is very important. Second is communicating, but also communicating effectively and communicating frequently. Third is being present. I'll talk a little bit more about that. 4 is what I call keeping the buckets full, which is about really keeping positive anchors for those who are familiar with NLP. 5 is in all relationships, there's going to be times when it's tough, and there's going to be times of conflict. So having a harmony strategy ready in place is actually, I think, very key. And number 6 is actually related to number 4, which is to continually invest. In other words, to commit. So let's talk about each of these. Here we go. So in NLP, we have a great tool called meta programs. And it's part of also language and behavior profiling. Oops. Language and behavior profiling, which is great for eliciting criteria. It's so you can ask the question, what do you want in a relationship, and actually prioritize how what your most important values are. So it could be something like, what do you want in a relationship? And it could be something like loyalty, could be honesty, physical attractiveness. What else? Trust, yes. Um, chemistry. So one of the things that you want to do is you want to ask these questions first for yourself, and then weigh which ones are most important. Um, I'm not going to do a demo here because it takes a little while, and I want to be able to cover this all the information. But criteria identification is one of the meta programs that you can definitely look up in many of the books on NLP or even in the internet. So it's important for both you to do that to yourself and to mine, or to and to your partner. Excuse me. So the other thing is also understanding how your partner likes to communicate. So I told a story last time about, for example, how my ex-wife and my communication styles were very different. So, for example, we used to live in this high sixth floor of this apartment building where it would snow. The season, well, place there was a season. And one day we had the first snow of the season. While my wife was still sleeping, I looked out and I noticed we were living right in this beautiful park, and I noticed that the grounds in the park were just covered with virgin snow. And so I went downstairs before my wife woke up and drew this big heart in the snow with her name and my name, like a little plus sign, just like those little kids. And and I thought it would be really fun for her to wake up to it. So I waited until she woke up, and then I led her to the window. And sure, she liked it a lot. However, she didn't quite like it much as I thought she would like, or much as I would have liked. And what I would do is I would actually post like little post-it notes on mirrors saying, "I love you, have a great day." A lot of visual symbols. Um, and she loved it, but it never quite had the kind of effects that I thought that would be as impactful to me. However, for her, what she would do is that she would love to just sit totally close wherever we were sitting, and she would really want to be in physical contact. So when we were driving, she would always hold my hand, which drove me nuts because I drove a manual, so I had to disengage all the time. Um, so it was a very different way of communicating. So for me, it was really important to communicate and to be communicated visually. And for her, she needed that kinesthetic, the touch, and also the proximity of being close to somebody to know that for example, I loved her. So I think having that understanding of what your style is and what your partner's style is really important. And even going beyond that, well, before we go to that, so one of the ways that we can figure out uh, what types of communication styles that they have, VAK stands for visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So you can kind of tell that by the kind of phrases that they use. So for example, I see, if they say that a lot, they're probably very visual. Now this is, I know, very basic for most of the NLP practitioners in here, but there are a few people who don't have as much NLP exposure, so I'm just going over the very basics. And the next thing that I wanted to kind of talk about with that same channel, that same area about knowing is the convincer channel, which means it's still another meta program question or language and behavior profiling question. how do you know that you are feeling loved? So maybe I could ask somebody, some people in the room here, and if you would type, how do you know that you are loved? Sophia.
I can give an example of how my husband feels like he's in love.
Uh-huh.
A lot of things I do, it doesn't really touch him. But he feels if I give him cards, Valentine's Day, all kinds of, um, you know, occasions he wants cards, so he can read the things that I write about. And second thing is, if I give him the head rubs, or like rub his head,
Okay.
he loves it. He couldn't get enough.
Wonderful.
And he feels that's how he feels in love.
Okay.
And which, to me, it's like, well, I've done a lot of other things, but those don't count.
Okay. Thank you so much. So Sabine actually says, I feel it in my spine. So Sabine's very kinesthetic. But I mean, a lot of us feel that, definitely. And I think we feel it in many different ways. And we're convinced in many different ways. So, and you can figure that out by asking, how do you know you're loved? And really kind of getting that criteria for that. Okay. Once again, this is a very easy question and process that you can look up in a lot of NLP books and also in the internet. So some of the ways are things like seeing, hearing, reading about it. So I need to get rid of it. So yeah, there are a little bit of technical problems here. I don't know how to do this. I can do it. Okay. So to give you a really brief example, this also works for how do you know that someone is actually doing a great job? A friend of mine was actually asking about uh, his job and how he was kind of complaining that he wasn't getting promoted, that his boss wasn't paying attention to him. So I asked him this actually convincing question about, well, what do you do and what do you think, describe your interactions with the boss. So he would actually send her a lot of reports, a lot of, things through the computer, emails and stuff like that. And I had him describe what her usual day activities were. And what I guessed was is that she was somebody who was very kinesthetic and was convinced by working with another person, proximity, kind of like my ex-wife was. So I said, basically, look, what I want you to do is just go to her office every day and ask her questions. Like, just know the answers to them first. And he did, and within a month, he actually got a promotion. It was so knowing how somebody gets convinced of something to be very powerful. So there's an exercise that I actually love to do that I think is really useful. It turns out that your heart and your brain is connected by this nerve called vagus nerve. And when your heart is actually calm, it's a lot easier for you to be connected with yourself. It's a little bit hard doing this breathing exercise in person, but I'll give you just a very quick sample of it. The first thing you want to do is actually just go ahead and get yourself grounded, have 2 feet on the floor, take a deep breath, and imagine that you're breathing into your heart. So that with each breath, connect your heart and feel a sense of connection with who you are. And also think about somebody that you really care about, somebody who really cares about you, and think about how they make you feel. And that sense of gratitude of being connected with somebody. And what you would do is with each breath, you would just increase that and And just kind of do and keep breathing and get that sense of connection larger and larger. And it's very useful to use some modalities like color that's associated with feeling love, feeling gratitude, and just expanding that from your heart to your body and to the outside with each breath. So I apologize, we're not going to do it fully. So everyone come back if you guys would like to sing. You guys can definitely do it. There are people in this room here who are doing it with us. So it's lovely. So the second thing I wanted to talk about, actually the second thing I was talking about was definitely about communicating with the VAK and the convincer channel. The third is being present. And being present also means being very authentic and being vulnerable. One of the ways that we can be vulnerable is actually a very simple exercise of actually making eye contact with people. This one, actually, I'm going to do it now. Diana, do you mind? Okay. So I'd like you to come. Just go ahead and grab your chair. So Diana is actually going to do a quick demonstration with me. And basically, what it is when you're making eye contact with somebody, immediately your walls, so your actually walls go up if you're not familiar with that person, if you're with a stranger. But also, eye contact is actually the first and the most important doorway into your own sense of self. So just being able to stay with it is really important. So actually, you know what I'm going to do is because you have such bigger eyes and more beautiful eyes than mine. Because I know a lot of you guys are watching on the computer. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to watch Diana in the computer and look at her eyes. But just for like 40 seconds, okay? And just notice what happens. And so go ahead, and I want you to go ahead and look deeply into the eyes. And, so go straight into the eyes. And what I'd like everyone to do is just, if you have a partner actually, in this room, I'd like you to just go ahead and pick the partner next to you. And then just look at the eyes for about 30 seconds. Just notice what happens. Now imagine that your heart is opening up, that this person that you're looking at is connected to you in a deep way. And imagine that the sense of connection is increasing and is creating this bond between you two. And just notice what happens. Your blinking rates might go up. You might start to feel uncomfortable. But stay with it. And breathe into it. That's right. And see if you can first start sending them kindness, gratitude. And now see if you can actually start accepting their kindness and their gratitude. Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. So I don't know if you guys can. So what's happened actually in this little room was, hold on. So what happened in this room was that everybody started hugging afterwards, or most people started hugging afterwards. So it's a very powerful exercise. Um, and like I said, it's something that can actually increase your sense of both your vulnerability, yet increase your sense of courage. And the reason I actually the PowerPoint for Brene Brown is because she talks about this in the most lucid and articulate way. And it's a very touching video. I highly recommend watching it if you get a chance. She talked, because what she did was she actually studied people who were wholly connected, people who had amazing relationships, people who were fully engaged in their lives. And what she found is that what commonality that they all shared was one, actually that they were, that was it. They weren't any richer, they weren't more educated, they weren't more accomplished, but they just somehow believed that they were worthy of being connected, of connecting with others. And part of that belief actually came from the fact that they were willing to be courageous, willing to be actually also to be vulnerable. Because what they found is that in vulnerability is the person's beauty. So, yes, like I'm doing now. Yeah. Well, let me see if I can. Any comments or questions, guys? Oh, so there are people saying thank you, Diana. They really liked your demonstration.
Thank you.
So the next thing I want to talk about is actually keeping your buckets full. There's a new research that's actually being done by a woman named Barbara Fredrickson, Professor Fredrickson of psychology in the University of Northern California. And what she found is that Dalai Lama and all these people were right. That compassion actually increases love. In fact, that love is not what we thought it was. That it's actually filled with little micro, what she calls positivity resonance. So we share these little brief moments, which by the way, usually happens first through eye contact. So when you have different resonance, it doesn't have to be with your lover. It could be coworkers, with friends, strangers. That it actually increases your capacity for love, and it increases your health, increases your longevity and your productivity. So it's an amazing thing. So I was talking about what happened with my life and why things spiraled down really quickly. In NLP, one of the things I realized is that it all can be explained actually to one simple concept. There were more negative anchors than positive anchors. In other words, we were sharing and we were associating each other with a lot more negative experiences than positive experiences. And it wasn't just because of us, what we were doing to each other, but because of things that were happening in the environment. So one of there are lots of research now on how important it is to keep the positivity to negativity ratio at least 5 to 1. There's a very famous psychologist and family therapist named John Gottman who had studied over 700 couples. And what he found was that he could predict within 94% accuracy whether they would stay together or divorce within 5 years from a 10-minute observation of the couple, from 10 minutes. And the most important factor that he would note down was how many things that they were saying that were positive versus negative about each other, towards each other. And it turns out that this is also true for business cases. There was another consultant or professor in Losada who did a University of Michigan business case studies where they studied 60 different teams, some very high performing, some very low performing. And he found out that for a high performing team, there was a 5-to-1 ratio of positive encouragement, support, positive comments versus criticisms or negative comments. For low performing teams, guess what? It was 1-to-3. One positive for every -3. Which is really not that surprising, right? Just also there is a upper limit, at least in the business case. I'm not sure if this is true in the personal case, but what they found in the business case is that there's an upper limit of actually about 13-to-1. If it's like 13 positivity to 1 and over, you start losing your credibility. So I don't know if that's true in the personal relationship. Because one of the things that emotions are really contagious, and also relationships are part of a systemic process. So we often think it's really about one-on-one, about a diet. But in reality, it's really about, for example, in the case of my business partner and my ex-wife and I, there were a lot of environmental factors that were happening that was actually not anything to do with us, that was creating this lot of negative anchors, negative emotions that we were associating. And this could easily happen. So for example, imagine, the wife works really hard, had a really long, hard day at work, and she comes home and the husband says, "Hi, how are you, honey?" And the wife, just from all the stress of the day, says, "I can't talk to you right now. I gotta just chill." So that's one negative anchor, and it's got nothing to do with how they really feel about each other, but it's just with all the environmental factors. So what I'm going to actually show you is you want to keep your bucket full. So by every day saying things like, "You rock," "I treasure you," little hearts. So keeping your bucket full is what I consider really important. And then when you need to, when things are getting tough, you can always make a little bit of withdrawal, and get some goodies out, pass out some M&Ms. So Sabine asked 17-to-1 ratio. It's actually 13-to-1 ratio, and it's from a University of Michigan business study that's done by Losada, L-O-S-A-D-A. I think there's a citation actually that's in the PowerPoint, and when this is uploaded or when the PowerPoints are uploaded, you can go and take a look. No, it's okay. It's fine. Thank you. So next. Oh, wait. Before I get to the harmony strategy, one more thing I wanted to talk to you about for what Barbara Fredrickson, the woman I mentioned a little bit, was talking about. She would say that positivity resonance it's really like it. And what she found is that despite what we like to believe, that love is unconditional and that love is constant, that actually the strongest relationships are built on accumulation of what she called little moments, little micro moments sometimes of positivity resonance, which means sharing things together, sharing something positive. It could be watching a movie and laughing at a fun. When you build up enough of those, it actually keeps your emotional bank account full. Hi, Gareth. So metaphor, are you talking about the bucket metaphor? Okay. Does that make sense now? Thank you. Okay. So the the fifth key to secrets of success is Deborah's harmony strategy. And I know it's very difficult to read here. So when you get the PowerPoint and upload it, you can read it, I think, a little bit more. But so Deborah Roundy is a good friend of mine. She was one of the my classmates. She was one of my classmates at NLP University when we went through trainers training together. And she and I were supposed to model each other. So I asked her what she would like to be modeled on, and Deborah's incredibly modest. So she actually has a lot to offer. But I found out that after having been married for 34 years, that she had successfully um, not fought for 33 and a half of those years, which I thought was amazing. So I thought, okay, I got to know about this. So I modeled her on that. So it turns out she actually has a very specific strategy. And she said her first 6 months of marriage, there was a lot of fight and there was a lot of conflict. But something kind of clicked. And she said that what happened is that she realized that she really, um, on her own, realized that having so many fights was really eroding that bond between her husband and her. So she came up with this strategy kind of organically about how to do it, how to prevent fights. And so these are sort of the steps. It's an interesting step because this is a little bit, there was a cognitive and a behavioral part. Part of the cognitive part was just that she would first try to take a meta position. A meta position is taking a third kind of a position of being not looking from your point of view or from the other point of view, but from a third person's point of view, like as if you're watching a movie, to see what was really going on. And a lot of times, the first thing she would ask is, what's really going on here? Or what does he really need? What is this fight about? Because a lot of time, what she found out is that fight is not often about something that was really trivial, but that there was something that also beyond that. And she would try to address that. And then when she got into a situation of conflict, she would picture a time in her mind when she actually laughed at that positivity resonance that I was talking about. For example, one picture that she repeatedly used is she said one time they were having a fight and she was so angry, she grabbed something to just throw it at him. But turns out the thing that she grabbed that was closest to her was this big piece of paper, well, sheets of paper. So when she threw at it, it just kind of all fluttered. And so she said her husband and both kind of looked at the paper fluttering, and they all started cracking up. And they were able to kind of laugh about it. So she uses that as a kind of a visual concept. And then she hears in her mind something that she had said about her husband to somebody else, or to herself, or to him, which is that I really love you. I really love him. So she will hear that immediately. And then the thing is that she would do an auditory digital, which is talking to herself. She would ask herself, do I really want to fight with this person? She would say, no, I really don't want to fight with this person. So she would go through this visual construct, auditory, and auditory digital, very in a quick succession. Now, this is her strategy. What I would suggest is all of us to come up with a harmony strategy that's something similar to figure out and practice beforehand. One thing that's really worked for her is that she actually did practice, so that when situations of conflict came up, it was already in her muscles. So that it's like learning martial arts. It's not like you're trying to think about the move when you need it. It's so in your muscles that when the situation arises, that she can immediately go to it. And the other thing is that she would just physically walk or move. Movement would often dispel the energy, and she would go to recharge herself. A lot of times it would just take a little bit of time. So the six I already talked about was the investing in the emotional bank. Um, but as I kind of said before, that love is not always unconditional, although we would like it to be, because that also takes a lot of practice. Um, I had one of my friends actually recently, his dog died, and he called me and asked me if I could do a grieving process with his children because his children had grown up with the dog. And they were really, really sad. So I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So I met with my friend and we talked, and then while I was talking to him, before I talked to the kids, I was telling him what I would do, and I found out that it wasn't really his kids that really wanted that grieving strategy. It was actually my friend Kevin who was really sad about it. So I could tell he's really emotionally devastated. And I got it. And part of the reason is because animals, dogs, cats, sometimes they're the only examples of unconditional love. I mean, they are really amazing. You know, dogs will come back and treat you like you're the most important thing in the world, even if you leave the room for 15 minutes, right? So this sense of vulnerability, they are completely vulnerable all the time. It makes them so endearing. Um, so that unconditional love is something that actually comes with practice and time. So there's a Korean word which is called chang, which there's actually a Japanese and a Chinese version of this word in common, and it's universal. If you're in Korea, people use this concept and word all the time. However, it's really incredible because I couldn't find equivalent word for it in English, except maybe the field. So what it means is it's an affection that grows with time. And you can actually feel junk, not just with somebody you really like and love, but even with your enemies. You know how like in the superhero movies or comics, like the arch enemy and the superheroes, like they've been battling for years, but one of them actually like dies or something like that, the other gets really sad. That's junk because there's a mutual respect and love and commitment that had grown up with that. So even though shooting for unconditional love itself might be very difficult as human beings, commitment is not. And I think that's one of the strongest, most incredible gift that we can give to another person is giving that commitment of saying, I will care for you, I will love you no matter what. And for me, one of the greatest gifts about my friends from NLP University, and this is Frauke, Camilla, all these, Daniel, they have given me that kind of commitment as friends. And it was just amazing. That's what got me out of my huge, the downward spiral when I was trying to figure out what the hell is all of this when I was learning NLP. It wasn't the NLP techniques, but it was that kind of commitment and sponsorship that came with this knowledge that really got me out and really helped me. And now, being able to help me share this ideas and concepts. Yes. So let me go ahead and um, summarize it again. The first is knowing yourself and your partner, which we have some very useful tools through meta programs, also called language and behavior profile. Some of I think the most useful are things like criteria, elicitation, and identification, and communicating frequently and effectively. the visual, auditory differences are for both yourself and your partner, and being able to use the right language and the right behavior to be able to communicate in a way that's very effective. And also knowing how that another person gets convinced, which is very related to the AK communication style. And also being present, being vulnerable. It's something that I wanted to talk a little bit more about, but it's very difficult to do online. But it's really about not spending just time, because how many times have we spent time talking with people, but you felt like that person really wasn't there? How many times have you hugged somebody, but you feel like, right? But there have been times all of us have experienced when we have hugged and we felt, wow, that's a real hug. Full on presence. That's what we're talking about. Just giving that quality of attention. I think Richard Moss, who is often quoted by Judith and Robert, says that greatest gift that you can give to another person is the quality of your attention. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about presence. But it also means about being vulnerable and being courageous. And they're actually the same thing. Because if everything was easy, it wouldn't be hard to be courageous. It's only by being able to be vulnerable that you can be courageous. And that's things like saying, for example, whether it's asking someone out or asking for help or offering help. One of the most destructive things that actually happened in my marriage is like, for example, when my ex-wife wanted to initiate sex and I didn't. And I realized now that it wasn't, I mean, of course, we're all allowed times when we're just not in the mood or anything. But when someone is being vulnerable and asking something, I wasn't attentive to it. And I think that was so incredible that I wasn't aware of that kind of vulnerability that someone would put themselves in. And being just be aware of it, being respectful of it. It's full. I think I said enough about that. And I do keep this bucket actually in front of on my desk to keep myself as a reminder with these little hearts. So it's a great reminder. Having a harmony strategy ready, because life is not always full of roses. In fact, it's a lot of the challenges and overcoming the challenges that makes the relationship stronger. You know, it's actually when you have disagreements and fights, and when you are able to resolve that together, then you create that moment of positive resonance. So I think that's really important to not only have it ready, but in your muscles through practice. And the sixth is committing, continually investing in the relationship. So I think that's, wow. I'm actually on time. I was actually really afraid that I was going to go over. Do we have any questions or comments, guys? Any questions or comments from here?
Very good.
Thank you. So maybe what we can do is we can do a one demo since we have time. Very brief one of criteria elicitation. Who's like, anybody like to, Diana, you want to, because you're sitting closest to me. So since Diana and I are going to do a demonstration of the criteria elicitation, which we did in the beginning. Oops. So I'll leave this code in just a few minutes. So we're just going to do a quick demonstration of how to identify a criteria. Okay? Let's see if we can. Okay. So Diana, what do you want in a relationship?
Harmony.
Harmony. Harmony. What else would you like?
Support.
Support.
Each other.
Okay.
Growing each other.
Support. Okay.
Trust.
Trust. Okay. Harmony. Support. Trust. Good. Anything else?
Understanding each other.
Understanding. Okay. So harmony. Yeah. Harmony. Support. Understanding. About hot body or big bank account.
That comes next.
That goes next.
After supporting each other to grow, the bank account comes.
Okay. Yeah. Bank account. Okay. So maybe how, do you want to say it in your own words? Maybe stability or financial things.
The potential for the stability, potential for, because you can count on somebody having that right away at the moment when
Yes.
or start building the relationship, but potential and having all it takes
Okay.
to get there
Right.
at the right time, right place.
Okay. So potential.
And
So
attraction.
attraction. Wonderful. Okay. Great. So we started with harmony, and then we had support, understanding. We had potential for financial stability, stability, and then attraction. Right? So we're going to do this very kind of a short version of it. But if you had support versus harmony, and you had to choose one for now, which one would be more important to you?
Harmony.
Harmony. Okay. So if you had harmony versus understanding, what would be most important to you? Harmony. If you had harmony versus potential for financial stability.
Harmony.
Harmony. Ah, okay. And harmony versus attraction.
Harmony.
Harmony. Okay. So we figured out that harmony is actually your most important criteria. So let's go to the second one. How about support versus understanding?
Understanding.
Understanding. So understanding versus financial stability.
Understanding.
Understanding. Understanding versus attraction. Attraction, good. So we have two. So the first one is harmony, second one is attraction, right? Good. So harmony was pretty high up there, so let's, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, so support, understanding was pretty high up there, so let's go. Understanding versus support.
Understanding.
Understanding. Understanding versus financial stability.
Understanding.
Understanding. Yeah. Yeah. So that's our third criteria for Diana. So we're left with support and financial stability. Right? Which one would be more important?
Support.
Support. Yeah. So we very quickly, I would actually kind of just check these again and redo it, and I would write them down. But we wanted to give you a short version of how you would elicit someone's criteria. And in a very few minutes, you can actually find out what is really, really important to someone in their heart, right? Is that useful?
Great experience. I didn't expect it to be so easily done up.
Yeah. Thank you, Diana. Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
So I want to leave you guys with a few quotes because I know it's about time. So this is one of my favorite authors, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wrote The Little Prince. And what he says is that love does not consist in gazing at each other, but looking outward together in the same direction. This, which is very much in line with what John Gottman says also about what he advised couples who want to stay together, is to share moments of enjoyment, which is also the same thing what Barbara Fredrickson says about sharing, creating moments of positive resonance. So it's really about not so much looking at each other, but really being able to look out and sharing something. And I think that's so important. And the last slide is a quote by William Shakespeare, which talks about really commitment and everlasting. So thank you so much. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. And please let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email me. I would love for you guys to all spread the word about NLP Planet. It's really a mission of the heart because we are really trying to bring these tools and ideas and useful things to people who would not be able to either afford them or access them because of where they live or because of convenience and so forth. And like I said, for the first online conference, we're going to have 12, 13 speakers, the best in the world, talking about the most innovative processes in NLP or hypnosis or therapy. Steve Gilligan is doing his first ever webinar, which I think is just amazing, and we're so honored to have him. And all of this for like very low price. I forgot what the price is, but it's just incredible what they're offering. Over 30 hours of the latest and the most innovative NLP techniques by the best trainers in the world. So hope to all see you in an online conference. And at the online conference seminar, I'll be doing a 2-hour version, which is more geared towards team building and business, but which also applies to personal relationships, about how to create that strong relationships. Thank you all. Love you. I really love you guys. Love your support. Anka, Thomas, Inge, Ivan. Oh my God. You're here, Ivan. Thank you. Amazing. Oh, the conference is happening from January 30th. Thank you. You guys are awesome. You rock. Love you guys all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, they all want to say bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Xavier.